welcome to the very first episode of Changing Habits, Changing Lives. Hi, my name is Azzy Aslam. I coach people to make transformational changes to their performance, their work, and their lives. I use neuroscience and psychology of habits, routines, and disciplines to create an awesome mindset to help my clients make those changes successful and long-lasting. In this very first episode, I'm going to focus on exactly what is a habit. What is going on inside our brains that creates the habits. We all have them, we like some, we don't like others. And what can we do to create the new habits that we want that'll help us make the changes in our lives? They say that we are a collection of habits. 90% or more of what we do is simply down to the habits we have collected over our lifetime, over the years, over the experiences that we've had. Even the famous Greek philosopher Aristotle has a quote which says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit." So what do you recognize as a habit? You may be surprised to learn that walking is actually a habit. It's something we learned as children, and we get pretty good at it over the years. We can walk, balance, even run. Easy. The brain loves these kind of things. It loves habits that take no effort at all for you to think about what you're doing. Let's take a couple more examples. When you're getting up in the morning, you're getting dressed and you're putting on the shirt, can you remember which sleeve you put on first? Is it the left or the right? It doesn't really matter. The point is the brain has got this down to a good habit and you just get on and do it. Even when you put on your shoes, which one do you put on first? Again, doesn't matter. It happens and you can get on with your day. Now let's just talk through what's happening in the brain when we create these habits, whether we do them consciously or unconsciously. Every time we do something, particularly when we start to do it over and over again, so it could be hitting the snooze button in the morning, learning to ride a bicycle, driving a car, or learning to use a new spreadsheet in the office, even a training course that you've been to and you're trying to implement some of the learning that you have from that course. So every time you hit the snooze button, what's happening is there's a whole bunch of neurons firing in the brain. The more often you hit the snooze button, the more often you do it, day in, day out, those neurons keep firing. They now create a pathway. So the brain knows now what to do, and it starts to make that pathway stronger and stronger and stronger. So the more often you repeat the habit, the stronger the pathway becomes. The brain has another trick then. When you first start doing the habits, there'll be a whole bunch of neurons that fire, and there's some peripheral pathways that were also created. The brain likes to use as minimum energy as possible when it's storing these habits. So what it starts to do is it trims away at the pathways which are no longer required for you to do this new activity. This leaves the strongest pathway, which then gets reinforced over and over, gets stronger and stronger, so it actually gets embedded into the brain as a strong habit. I like to use the analogy of a river when it comes to these neural pathways. You'll see a river has cut its way through the ground. The more often it goes through that route, the river gets stronger and deeper and wider. In a similar way, the neural pathways also get stronger and stronger. They don't get deeper in the brain, but they just get stronger when the habit is performed over and over and over again. So I hope now you get some sort of idea of what's going on in the brain when we create these habits, with these neurons that are firing, the pathways being created and getting stronger and stronger the more times we repeat that habit. So when you're actually trying to change habits or create new habits, you're actually up against your old habits which have been ingrained over weeks, months, and probably years. And there's lots of habits that happen very quietly in the background which we don't even realize. I mean, I have a habit of when I come back from meetings, I get back to the house and I put my case down usually in the same spot that I do every time. I put my keys on the kitchen table, again, usually around the same spot that I do every time. And because I repeat this habit over and over and over again, I just do it automatically without even thinking. So what can we do to change our existing habits and also to create new ones which are far more productive and more useful to where we want to be in our life? I went to a lecture a few years ago from a neuroscientist, and it's really interesting to listen to what she had to say about habits. The first thing she said was, you can't change habits. This was a bit of a revelation because everybody talks about changing habits, and so did I. But she said, no, you can't change habits. And very similar to the river that's been cut into the ground, the amount of efforts that you're going to put in to change that river, the flow of that river, is enormous. Now think of the Grand Canyon. Imagine trying to change that. That's been cut through rock for millions of years. And in the same way, the pathways and the neural pathways that we've created in our brain follow that pattern, because they're now set. Now, they aren't physically cut into the brain, but the pathways have been connected, they're stronger, they're sharper, and they just are just there in the brain, automatically being run when the brain wants them to happen. So the trick is not to think about changing habits, but start thinking about creating new habits. So again, going back to the river analogy, rather than trying to change the pathway of that river, we go back to where it started. And if we start to cut away into the ground a different path for that river, the water will start to flow down there. And again, it will slowly, over time, cut into the ground and create a new river going in a different direction. Now we also have to start thinking in a different way. Stop thinking about changing habits, but think about creating new habits. Focus on the new habit. So we focus on what we need to do, and we repeat it over and over and over again. This will connect the neurons, it'll fire the neurons together, they'll then connect together, and the pathways will get stronger and stronger and stronger. The focus is on the new habit. What happens to the old habit? Well, that's still there. It's not going away just yet. But over time, it will fade. It will become less connected, won't be as strong, but it will be there. But over time, it will fade into the background. As long as you keep doing the new habit and you make that stronger by repeating it each day, every other day, or whenever you do that activity, you make that habit stronger. The more often you can repeat that habit, the faster those neurons will connect, the faster the pathways will be created, and the stronger the pathways will become. Now just think about going back to school. And remember, you perhaps learned something off by heart, some poem. The more often you repeated the poem over and over again, the faster you actually remembered it. And in the same way, any habit that you want to become the dominant, more productive habit is the one you must repeat. The old habit, avoid doing the old habit. Even avoid thinking about the old habit, because even thought helps to strengthen the neurons and the connections and the pathways. So think about the new habit, focus on the new habit, and do the new habit over and over and over again. And in time, it will become, the habit of choice. Now, creating a new habit which is more productive, more in line with where you want to be, is not easy. It takes time and it takes quite a bit of effort. But persistence does pay off. And the other thing you can do, depending on the habit and how complex it is, you can break it down into smaller pieces. You can work on it bit by bit. So going back to the poem that we learned at school, you can, rather than trying to learn the whole poem in one go, you learn one line at a time. Once you've got the first line, you can do the second line, the third line, and so on. Now again, it really depends on the habit you're trying to create and how it can be broken down, so you can tackle it piece by piece. The key things to remember is to think about the new habit. Focus on the new habit only. Break it down into smaller pieces if you have to do that, and then repeat over and over again, day in, day out, as often as you can. The habit will form, the neural pathways will connect, and the habit will be ingrained in your brain. That's it for my very first episode. I hope it's useful. If you have any questions, please do contact me on my email, which is coach@comentra.com. That's coach@comentra.com. In future episodes, we'll cover a bit more about habits, routines, disciplines, and also on how to create an awesome mindset. I'll also look out for new studies and research from psychology and neuroscience, which I hope you'll find useful to help you make the changes in your life. In the meantime, I hope you had a great day, and I'll see you for the next episode. Bye now.